The living dead are walking among us. Every day, our homes, our livelihoods, and our businesses are under assault from the clawing threat of shambling undead ghouls. For a challenge, I tried to see if I could survive in a single house in Project Zomboid, but this time, there's a horde of zombies every night. The rules for this challenge are simple. I have to stay on my property at night. I can expand it, but I have to build it out first. Every day from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m., it's daylight, and I'm allowed to leave the house and scavenge the neighborhood for supplies. But at night, when the undead lay siege to the home, I have to come back and defend my property. Those were the rules, but how many days would I survive? Oh, and before we begin, shout out to the Horde Every Night mod for Project Zomboid. If you want to try this challenge for yourself, there's a link to it and the other mods I'm using down below. I spawned in on day 1 in my starter house with nothing but a watch on my left wrist, a little after 8 a.m. on October the 20th. The first thing I did was to close the curtains to the snow outside so that the undead wouldn't notice me stirring within, and I turned on the TV and changed the channel to Life and Living, hopefully to catch some informational survival broadcasts before the electricity cut out. While I waited on the programming, I searched the garage for useful tools, an axe and a metal pipe for simple weapons. I went out front and used the pipe to bash in the brains of the ghoul loitering on my front porch, clearing the front and backyards, and stealing his coat for protection. I cleared out the rest of the house, overgrown with weeds, and discovered a beginner carpentry text. Then I sat down on the first floor and read it in front of the TV, where the carpentry show had come on to boost my XP gains. After all, next I was going to have to start making use of my carpentry skills to barricade my home and construct tools to defend myself. I went outside in the rain to cut down trees and saw logs to build a set of wooden spears. Then I used those to stab all the ghouls in the street to clear out the block. It made safe the entrance to a treasure hoard, the house across the street, a barricaded survivor home containing a surfeit of armaments, everything from swords to axes and all that lay in between. I towed it all the way back to my garage and threw it on the ground to sort later if I had the time. After all, it was getting late in the evening, and I had more logs to saw to barricade my windows and catch the fishing show on TV before 10 o'clock when the first horde would arrive. Donning gloves and better armor, I guarded the front door with my upgraded spears, made sharper by fastening screwdrivers to their ends. And then they came. The first night was only 10. Nothing crazy, but every night another 10 appear. So 10, 20, 30, and so on, until eventually, well, best not to think about that yet. For the first day, I had to back off into the living room, but the weapons from my neighbor's house were more than enough for home defense. I slept even before midnight, putting an end to the first day. I awoke on the second day to clear out any stragglers from the first night. Then I searched the nearby homes for more books to learn carpentry, mechanical, and electrical skills faster. One I had slain was carrying a large backpack for me to store and haul all my loot in. I kept moving house to house, collecting tools and armor to ferry back home, but unfortunately, no firearms. So I studied mechanical skills that day, knowing that the few items in my personal neighborhood would do little for me past the first 3 or 4 nights. I needed wheels and a truck to get better supplies from town. With all that, I spent the second night in more amateur home defense, and again I slept before midnight. Knowing the urgency, on day 3 I got to work fixing the cars to hotwire a truck and make my way out of the neighborhood. I lucked out with some reanimated police officers and managed to snag a Spaz 12 shotgun and some shells off of one of the bodies to defend my house the next couple nights with. All the while I invested in learning so I could break out of the neighborhood. Nights 3 and 4 I defended my home with the shotgun, scraping by with more of the swords from the house across the street. All that bought me time to dismantle TVs from around the neighborhood. And finally, by the end of night 5's horde, 50 zombies, I was able to steal a truck from a nearby house to make my way north, all the way to the Army surplus store located in Louisville, and claim a payload of weapons. This place had everything needed to survive, tens of firearms, and hundreds of boxes of ammunition. But best of all of them, an AA-12 fully automatic shotgun. It's very effective when combined with the drum magazine containing 20 shells, which they also had. I consolidated over 300 kilograms of items into my trunk and returned home, where I prepared to dig in for the long haul. Parking the truck in the garage, now I had all the arms I needed. Nights 6 to 8 proved easy going, and it gave me time after the attacks to frame my defenses. Now I could funnel them in from greater Louisville to my enclosed neighborhood. I used my one working truck to push wrecked vehicles out of the way, and I started chopping down all the trees in the neighborhood for more logs. That would help me build lanes of fire for the undead when they'd eventually arrive at nightfall. 2 tiers of defense. An outer wall for the whole block, and an inner one for my house itself. When I started losing weight from all the manual labor, I took frequent breaks to eat the last perishable foods in the fridges of the neighborhood and keep weight on my bones. By day 19, I'd finished the frames. Then working day and night, by day 21, I'd finally managed to fill in most of my wall frames and stage lookout nests from which I could pick off invaders. The first few nights, they started taking down my walls, so I just used my platform as a lookout to pick off any nearby ghouls. But then I started contouring my defenses to funnel them in from outside. After all that labor, now I had 2 complete walls for defense. But the whole endeavor had cost me more precious body weight, making it a toil to haul the heavy planks for my defenses. After all that labor, I rinsed off the filth and returned home to rest. The next set of tasks took days, but I hauled in furniture from the neighborhood to pad the defenses and make sure the undead would come straight for my gate. I brought in every TV from the neighborhood nearby. Then I positioned all my boxes of shotgun shells on the lookout post, so I never had to travel far to reload. So as the days went on, I replaced my doorway with a larger gate, so that I could take the van back out for another supply run. The Horde Nights, after all, were getting more and more intense, and I needed another restock, as well as tactical vests for easier access to the ammunition I was carrying. Better armor wouldn't hurt either. So after the Horde on day 30, I drove south through Louisville to the survivor evacuation shelters at the city's border. Past the refugee camps lay the military's answer to the outbreak, a fully kitted set of tents. But most importantly, ghouls wearing tactical gear to reduce my weight encumbrance. The area was mostly abandoned and fenced all around, so it was safe for looting, save a few I neutralized quietly. The spoils were more than I'd ever find in civilian homes and stores, and beyond that, I looked pretty damn cool. Or maybe there's just something about the sound of a suppressed automatic shotgun. Silent, deadly, and effective. Now, with the second source of supplies, I could focus on making myself into the ultimate warfighter. So throughout the entire day, I unloaded and reloaded my magazines, practicing thumbing through the bullets until I skilled up. Now I had all the ammo and supplies I could ever want, but I'd need to stay in keen fighting condition throughout the night to take on hordes that were starting to grow outrageously large. So, wave after wave, they washed upon the compound, and when they broke down the gate, I led them house to house inside the walls. Mostly it was working, besides of course the panic which still rattled my aim. So when the snowstorms had stopped, I drove back out into town, this time northeast through the overgrown blocks to the pharmacy. And once I'd cleared the area, I ducked inside to grab beta blockers from the counter and sneak them back out into my van. Then I made my way deeper and scavenged through the ruins of the local malls. And after clearing out yet more consumer hotspots, I earned my right to choose winnings from the local gun store in the mall. Heavily defended and locked up, I awaited an opening to secure the loot. For all the good fortune, coincidentally at this location, the best item I found was improved body armor on a reanimated riot officer. But this was all getting to be a lot for one man to carry. Back at home, I performed push-ups, squats, and burpees to get into better shape and carry all the body armor and ammo each night without getting over-encumbered. And when the fatigue started kicking in and giving me pain during the Horde nights, I started experimenting with new supplements, painkillers, and coffee to stay awake and accurate. I even spent days just switching mags on the fly to max out my reloading speed. It'd all be worth it when I tapped out and had to reload, running from the trains of ghouls whenever they breached my fortress. Certainly it was a lot to manage, but the tides were growing larger, and I knew my ammunition would ultimately be the limiting factor. So I started experimenting again, but this time with the M72 Law anti-tank missile launcher, the China Lake grenade launcher, whatever bizarre weapons I could get a hold of. And beyond that, I was only scratching the surface of all my 5.56 ammo. I parked the van in front of the entrance, so the ghouls had to drop to their hands and knees to get inside, lending me the upper hand and yet another height advantage. But some of the experiments didn't go as planned, and I wound up in hot water. Still, I knew I'd have to rely on something crazier to get by soon enough. I started parking more trucks and lighting campfires somewhere I knew the flames wouldn't spread, but still catch onto any corpse crawling along the ground. It seemed pretty effective and conserved more precious ammunition, but after a while you do start running out of bullets. Alternate solutions were sought, campfires as islands between barricades of parked cars. I had plenty of fuel from all the tattered rags lying around. Fire, after all, was unlimited and never ran out. The more of them there were, in fact, the better for spreading it around by getting them to bump up against one another, igniting the conflagration even in the thickest snowstorm and the harshest conditions. A bit of a cheese, to be fair, But honestly, this got me through strong up to the day's 70 and 80 mark. At which point, it honestly most just became about watching and waiting, in a battle of attrition. Monotony sets in, more about maintaining the line rather than actively seeking to improve yourself each day. No more looting runs, just watching the line, maintaining and making repairs. They'd keep coming through as long as I led them car to car, despite their dulled senses from the blizzard conditions. But ultimately, that's to say, it's the resourceful use of the basic elements, fire and heat, that win the day. Outdoing even the most seasoned veteran with the best tools tenfold, 100-fold. I heard Night Mod actually stopped sending increasing numbers after day 80. I never thought I'd honestly make it that far to begin with. But I've added a few hours since the last time I played, so I must have improved somehow. So I just kept getting sent the same wave from days 80 to 100, at which point I declared the challenge won. Anyway, it was fun trying out all the mods here. They've been really updated since the last time I played Zomboid. Big thanks to my patrons who helped make these videos possible, and I'm Ambiguous Amphibian. Until next time, my friends.